Hey, what's up? And you're hanging with the old timer and the punk once again. Sorry, it's been a bit of a delay, but unfortunately, life gets in the way. Uh, so much other stuff gets in the way. So we'd like to get to this a lot more because we have nothing more. We have so much information to go over. Today, we're going to be continuing with the second part of Brian Wilson, the great Brian Wilson, and the Surf Sound. And how rude! I didn't. Hello, old timer.
Hey, Punko, what are you doing?
Not much, man. Just trying to solidify my brain to stay in one place for a few minutes, if it's possible.
Well, that happens to people who are brilliant.
I don't know about that. Thank you. It happens when you're busy and trying to do 10,000 things at once, and you know have all this good information to deal with. So, talking about the second half of Brian Wilson, the first episode we ended off where drug use kind of came into the fold, and obviously he wasn't traveling with the band no more.
Yeah, I'd like to just rehash some of that so we can, uh, kind of tell our listeners, uh, really what happened. As Brian, went to high school, in
Hawthorne.
yeah, thank you, Hawthorne High School, where he met Al Jardine,
Yep.
and they became lifelong friends and actually business partners, if you think about it, with the Beach Boys. And Brian was a very, I hate to use this word, but tender. He was a very tender soul. He didn't have a bad bone in his body, and because of the abuse of his dad, and being always being told you don't measure up, you're no good, you're this, you're that, getting beaten, knocking the hearing out of one of his ears. We talked about that, and so on. So he just latched on to music, and that was his escape. So we talked about he just wanted to write and record songs, and he invented a genre. He invented the surf sound. So
I don't think was talk about what you and I always talk about. What else came from the surf sound, the other groups that were
oh,
involved?
there were many of them. Yeah, one of the biggest ones was Jan and Dean.
Were they related?
No, they were just friends.
And their hits were?
Oh God, all 90% of them written by Brian Wilson, mind you,
Yep.
because Brian was a good friend of Jan.
Was that little GTO?
No, that was Ronnie and the
There's another
Daytonas.
one,
Yep.
right?
Okay, but Jan and Dean had many hits, including New Girl in Town, little Linda.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. I don't sing it. I don't do it any justice. But
No, no, not that. Just what a.
yeah, little
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Linda,
I've heard that. I've heard
yeah,
that.
that was one of the big
But
songs.
doesn't it all sound like Beach Boys?
Yeah, well, Brian wrote them. So
Yeah.
Sidewalk Surfing, which sounds like Catch a Wave. In fact, it's the same music as Catch a Wave, just different lyrics.
And nobody could sue anybody because he
No,
helped them.
because he wrote it.
Yeah, just
you
take
know,
it, man.
yeah,
Take it. You
yeah,
take it.
and I mean, they had a lot of songs, and most of them were pretty good.
Who were the Stingrays?
They were a different group.
But they were in that sound,
They
right?
were in that, yeah. Ronnie and the Daytonas, Little
That was
GTO,
their claim to fame.
right?
Good song.
It was good. Actually, the Ventures, did some things that
Oh
were into
wow.
the surf sound. Hawaii 5-0, and songs like that. Um, and then of course there was Dick Dale, who was probably one of the greatest guitarists ever, who had a surf sound. He didn't sing; he just did instrumentally. Uh, he was amazing, great, 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 great artist. But Brian kind of, he didn't realize that he was gonna, because he loved three things in his life. Okay, remember the family was transplanted from Kansas, and they came to L.A. and they lived in uh, Hawthorne, which was right near the airport. and Hawthorne is right where the new stadium is, the football stadium that the Rams play in. That's Hawthorne and the other town where the Forum is,
Englewood.
Englewood.
Yeah.
Englewood and Hawthorne are they're like a couple of miles away, so they're real close to one another.
Right.
And that area started to really go down, in the late '60s. But anyway, so Brian's loves were the ocean.
Right.
He couldn't believe that he lived near an ocean.
Right.
He was 7 minutes away from the ocean.
Right.
He, he loved the weather.
Yeah.
He couldn't believe.
How could you not?
Well, yeah, I mean,
palm trees and sun.
right. In January, you're sitting outside and it's 60 degrees and it's sunny.
Which makes a good case for, a weird one too is, you figure a lot of vitamin D comes from the sun. They say a lot of the light helps with depression and,
yeah,
whatever else may happen with mentally. And it's unfortunate that he suffered from that.
Yep.
With all that good stuff.
Well, anyway, and then his third thing was cars. He loved cars. Okay. And he used to collect cars once he started becoming famous. He used to collect old cars. But so what did he do? He started writing about, Little Deuce Coupe, songs of the sun, songs of the area that he lived in.
Girls in bikinis.
California girls. I
Yeah.
mean, that was, if you go back and listen to every lyric, East Coast girls are hip. I really dig the way they dress and whatever it was, and I wish they all could be California girls.
And his writing, it's not that it's a bad thing, because I always think that sometimes the more simple things you stick to, the better the song. Like, he wasn't doing like a lot of psychedelic writing. It was very
his
straight.
His first 5 years, 6 years, when he was knocking out hit after hit after hit. If anybody really wants to appreciate it, go online, and there's an album called 50 Big Ones by the Beach Boys. And it was 50 of their earliest hits. 50 charters. Who could say that, right?
Who else has 50 hits?
I mean, America's band. So anyway.
Yeah, it's a who coined that term?
I think Mike Love did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So anyway, he made all these songs, and and like you said, they were not psychedelic. The message was, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Sitting in my car outside your house. Remember when we spilled Coke all over your blouse?
Yeah. Very
T-shirts, cutoffs, and a pair of thongs.
Yeah.
We've been having fun all summer long.
Yeah, very, very positive.
Positive song. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Never
really drug talk in there.
No. He just, that was his thing. And when he wrote God Only Knows, and we hit upon this, but in my opinion, his masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Mr. McCartney, Paul, who's a very dear friend of Brian, and inducted him into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Paul said, my favorite song in the world is God Only Knows. And Brian had written the song, and he didn't want to. He was nervous about releasing it.
Which was?
And do you know why he was nervous? Because he had God in the title.
Yeah.
And he was afraid that he was going to offend people.
Well, he also sung about his faith.
Yeah.
Which is admirable.
Yeah.
Because, again, I think that, they were coming from a time in the way he grew up in the 50s and 60s where it was God, family,
Mm-hmm.
country.
Right. So, anyway, he was afraid to release it, but then he finally did. And I don't have to tell you what became of it. I mean, the song is in Pet Sounds. So think about the songs in Pet Sounds. I was talking to a guy I worked with the other day, and he had the Pet Sounds album, and he's much younger than me. He's in his 40s. He had the Pet Sounds album on his turntable in his office, and I said, "You're listening to Pet Sounds?" He said, "Pet Sounds, maybe the greatest album ever written."
Knows what he's talking about.
Right. And I said, "Wow, you appreciate it?" He said, "Who could not appreciate it?
Well,
it's timeless."
It's funny you mention that. Good show for that guy, because Again, it's not a knock at the young generation today, but a lot of the younger people have no concept of where stuff comes from,
Right.
especially, Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, and what he created. Like you said, his own
His own genre.
genre. Yeah.
But I strongly suggest to people who may be listening, that if you never heard Pet Sounds, go online and listen to it, because talking about it's one thing, but it was just at the right moment, the right songs, the right temperament. I mean, right down to Sloop John B, which he didn't write, but he
He didn't write
arranged it.
that?
No, he didn't. It's a folk song.
Oh, that's right. It had been around.
Yeah, and but the way he arranged it was, typical Brian Wilson arrangement.
Yeah.
But the songs on Pet Sounds are just timeless. I use that word a lot, but they're timeless.
There's a lot of talk and interviews too about how he would get the band together in the studio to do like 2 minutes of something and say, "Okay, everybody, get out now and give me a minute. Let me see." And then
Well,
they'd come back 2 hours later and see how that
yeah, well,
sounded.
the best story there is when he did Good Vibrations.
Oh my god!
I know. He was recording, with the Wrecking Crew, who we talked about,
Yeah, great,
and
great group of
and Hal
musicians.
Blaine, who was maybe the best session drummer that ever lived, um, said, we got to know Brian and we got to love him, even though he was a little bit unusual. And he
Mhm.
used and he was being kind, saying a little bit unusual, because Brian, you know,
Savant.
well, he's that, and you got to remember he fried his brain,
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that. But
yeah.
anyway,
Just on your thing of arranging, when we saw him live, what's the song they did with the firemen with the hats?
oh, that was from the Smile
And he
album,
lined them all up.
right?
He lined all the musicians up accordingly, and they all had like a different.
Right,
They all had like a different responsibility. It was
right,
hitting the spoon, hitting the
right,
bell, but
right.
doing it at certain times.
It,
Amazing.
it was what he heard.
Yeah,
But anyway, so Hal Blaine would say, it took us. He said, and I can't complain because we got paid
yeah,
every time he was in the studio. We got paid, and in fact, I had a book, uh, and I still have it, that showed the accountant of the Beach Boys had a what do you call, a ledger
right.
for all the payments he made to the Wrecking Crew,
Oh my
and they
god.
were like, and they made, back then they were making $60 a session,
Yeah,
which was a lot of money back then, but still. So Hal said we'd come into work, and him and Carol Kay was, again, one of the greatest bass session players there ever was. We'd sit there, and he'd come in, and he'd tell us what he'd want, and okay, we played a note, bang, that's good.
see you
See you
later. Here's
later.
your $60,
He said we
and
got paid for we got paid for the hour, but it took 6 months for him to record the song, because two things. He was stepping out of his comfort zone creating this song. Remember, wouldn't it be nice? Uh, uh, God only knows. All the other songs that he
heroes
made.
and villains on there.
Heroes and Villains came later.
Okay.
Okay, but this was new to him, and he got this. So we mentioned this, I think, about how we got the inspiration
Yeah,
for it.
the
The
dog and
dog
his mom.
he was walking with his mom,
Right, right,
and this big dog came running at him, and he didn't know what to think. He was getting ready to panic, and the dog went up to him and started licking him.
right.
So the mother said, "Wow," she said, "you must give off good vibrations, because dogs pick up vibrations." And he looked at his mother and said, "Say that again." And she did, and bang, he was in the studio that night writing the
Yeah,
song. Okay.
good vibrations.
But anyway, it's just when he got out of his comfort zone to write that song. So that's why it took him so long. It had to be perfect. And if you look at what's in that song, you've got instruments that were never used before.
Yeah.
So
So many sounds.
sounds, and yeah. And Mike Love said to him when he wrote it, "So you're out of your mind." He
Exactly.
said he said our listeners aren't going to go for this. Our fans aren't going to
What
go for
year
this.
was that?
19. I'm thinking 68.
So you figure it's the late '60s, starting to get into a lot of hardcore rock, Hendrix, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane. So they still were able to maintain. Plus, they were battling the British invasion still with the Stones and the Beatles, and they were, they went from like that album, Pet Sounds. There was very. It didn't sound like a typical Beach Boys album, right? It wasn't. It stood alone in their catalog of music.
Paul McCartney says he can't listen to the album without crying.
Yeah,
Yeah. He said he can't.
Yeah. And is that their most famous soul album?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think that's what they would be remembered for mostly.
Yeah. I mean, they had a lot of good albums, but Pet Sounds was just.
Pet Sounds also took a lot out of him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was recorded at the Weston Studio where Hal Blaine lived, and stuff like that. But
you said something about the way he arranged music, which was phenomenal. And there's only been a good amount of people that have been very successful arranging music, because not everybody always knows what goes into that. But he, like, even to this day, though, he has a wonderful band that he arranges that is put together, excellent. And even like, he's in there. I don't know what the title would be in terms of being arranging music, but I guess it would be the ear. He has a perfect ear.
Yeah, he just heard things that in one ear. Take it now.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan's famous comment: "Imagine if this guy had two good ears."
Yeah.
But he heard things that other people couldn't, and other people didn't.
Right.
And other people looked at him and said, "There's something wrong with you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, the music. One of the greatest songs that was in Pet Sounds that was released as a single, and it didn't get a lot of bite, was a song called "Caroline No," and it was a very emotional song that that Brian wrote about a love of his life that broke up with him, and it was very 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 painful for him. But Sloop John B.
One of the best.
Wouldn't it be nice? God only knows. I mean, it goes on and on. So
yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. So
if you had if you had to say in the top a list of 100 of the greatest songs, I guess from the 60s, from 1960 and 1970, how many of them were Beach Boys songs?
Oh God, out of 100?
Yeah.
In my book,
15.
More like 30.
Wow.
But I'm only speaking for me. I was a Beach Boys fan, a Brian Wilson fan, from the first day. From the first song I was in high school. It was called "Surf." Let's go surfing. Everybody surfing now. Come on safari with me, surfing safari.
Right.
And I thought it was okay.
Well, you weren't a surfer. You were from the East Coast.
I lived on Skillman Street.
Yeah, you didn't surf much on
no,
Skillman.
On Skillman Street. We ran for our lives on Skillman Street.
Yeah, you hold on to buses and skitched.
Yeah. And then he did Surfing USA, which I really liked because it had a different beat to it, and it was great, And then they came like one boom boom California Girls. That's one of my favorite songs, California Girls.
Yeah,
the start of it,
and which was actually covered many years later by David Lee Roth in the 80s.
Yeah. A lot of people covered their songs, believe me. So then I'm starting to hear him, and then then there was the battle between the West Coast and the East Coast.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And then the British invasion happened, and the two bands in the United States that really held on and held their ground were the Beach Boys and Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. They didn't go away, but
battling. I'm thinking about what you're battling. I mean, just the battle of British invasion is like
the invasion was.
How do you fight that? Stones, Herman's, the Beatles. Donovan was in there.
Donovan Leitch.
Yeah,
he was from Wales. But you go. One of my favorite groups in the British invasion was Herman's Hermits.
Yeah,
he was a kid. Yeah. He was 14 years old, 15 years old. And now you and I had the pleasure to see him on stage.
Excellent.
He's what? He's 72 years old, and he's bouncing around like like a 15-year-old.
And he does a kick-ass version of was Ring of
Silhouettes.
Fire.
Yeah, he does
Yeah,
Johnny
it's pretty
Cash.
good,
Yeah,
man.
and
Pretty
he
good.
does a very good imitation of Mick Jagger,
Mick Jagger, yep,
running
yep,
all over the stage,
yep.
and so on and so forth. But you know, there were great groups coming out of England in those days. You said it, the Stones. The other group that never got its real due was the Dave Clark Five. Great group,
Yeah,
great group.
yep.
Um,
And like you said, he was living in L.A. Who was he battling? You were battling the Doors. You were battling Janis Joplin. You were
right,
battling Jimi Hendrix from Seattle.
right.
I mean, what a timing for all these things to come together. And then from the East Coast, well, you said you had Frankie. Was he from the East Coast, Frankie Valli?
Frankie Valli's from Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey. Who else was coming from the East Coast at the time?
Uh, you had a lot of groups on the East Coast, you know, that made 2 or 3 songs, and you know, and did okay, but like the big ones, I'm talking about the people who have stood the test of time. And we're going to go into a one hit wonder show, because there are people with one hit wonders that have lived for 60 years off the one song,
I'll take it.
and they still and today. I was listening to something this morning. Your mother said to me, "Hey, look, there's going to be a show at I think it's Hofstra, an
Okay.
oldie show." Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, who's on it?" And she said, "The Duprees." I said, "Oh, they're good. We've seen them a lot." I said, "But none of them are the originals.
Yeah.
None of them."
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then she said, Eddie Holman. She said, "Who's Eddie Holman?" I said, "A one-hit wonder guy that's lived off the same song for 50 years. Hey there, lonely girl."
We saw him before.
We did see
nice
him.
voice, very nice voice.
But he made one song.
That's it.
Okay. Bruce Chanel. Who the hell is
Never-
Bruce Chanel?
I never heard of Bruce Chanel.
Okay,
man.
but you heard of his song.
What is it?
Hey, hey, baby.
Oh,
I
Dirty
wanna
Dancing.
know.
Wow,
Would you
still
be
alive?
my girl? Yeah, one hit.
Shit.
Right.
I'll take it.
Okay. So we have a lot to talk about when it comes to one hit wonders. I'm really up on that.
Yeah, that's great. One hit
But
wonder.
anyway, well, I'm veering off
it's
course
okay.
here.
You know what I was curious to know, because you read the book. You got me to read Wouldn't It Be Nice, Catch a Wave, which are both about Brian Wilson's life and his career with the Beach Boys. So he starts, obviously, he has that bad experience with acid, which kind of changed his...
It changed his life.
It changed his brain chemistry almost.
It did 100%. And you and I had to talk about that a couple of weeks ago, how that can do it to you.
Yeah, it definitely can have that effect.
Yeah.
A lot of studies have showed that.
Yeah, he was never the same after that.
No. And of course, him being a certain type of personality, the way he thought, the way his brain was wired, sensitive.
Right.
It can definitely affect you.
I mean, the woman that he married, his first wife, who was, I think she was 16 when she married him.
Yeah,
okay.
And
that was a case of he needed somebody.
Right.
He needed somebody.
Right.
And she was, I mean, I feel sorry for her, because she really went through hell with him.
Yeah.
And she stood right by him.
Yeah.
The
guy had a lot of demons.
Yeah, he did. And he'll say it. He said to me, I was a lousy father to my children. I couldn't be there for them.
Yeah.
Because his mind wasn't there.
Yeah.
I couldn't be there. And today they get along great. In fact, they even tour together once in a while. Wendy and Carney, they were part of Wilson Phillips, who did pretty good on their own.
Good in the 90s.
They were children of royalty.
Yeah.
I mean,
pedigree, huh?
Some pedigree. What's her name? John Phillips' daughter was part of the group, and as crazy as he was, I mean, they were successful.
Also, too, like talking about how they were battling other bands during the 60s, which is funny in the book, as he talks about, they were on the bill to play with bands like such as Jimi Hendrix and the Experience, the Doors.
Right.
I think that was at the Pop Festival. Which one?
Yeah, the one in California, the
Monterey
Pop.
Didn't Papa John put that together?
He did. That was after what? Woodstock.
Yeah, which was a weird combination, because you had surf rock with hard rock, slightly metal. Right. And I remember Brian Wilson said something like it was a different scene.
But they didn't appear.
They didn't appear. That's right. He had some trouble, right? Unfortunate.
Well, they were asked to appear at Woodstock, and
would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting. And whomever, I'm not sure who it was.
Gotta ask Christian.
It could have been. I mean, who made the decision not to do it? And the reason they did was that they were afraid that it would hurt their clean, squeaky clean image.
I could see that.
You know,
I could see. Well, the same thing was said for Elvis. Could have been there. Shot
Right.
it down. Stones didn't go.
No.
So many, but it would have been. Because it's interesting. Because Sha Na Na was there. They did that little thing.
And they did some of Brian's songs too.
Yeah, they did great.
They were great.
Had a great set at Woodstock. So they were showing like the transition from the 50s, 60s over to this new, but people still appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been interesting to see if the Beach Boys were there, because at that time, again, they were growing the beards.
Yeah.
They
went through the time now when things started to change. They were desperate to look hip, if that's the word.
Yep.
So they started, started wearing the striped shirts and the Pendleton sweaters.
Yeah.
And they started getting Mike Love, had
floats,
no hair.
Right? Doesn't he float? He got into Ravi Shankar and all that stuff.
Transcendental meditation.
Right. Yeah, right.
Because he was, one thing I could say for him, he was absolutely dead against drugs.
Yeah. So he says.
So he says.
I hope so. I mean, that's his opinion,
Yeah. So, but Mike Love being Brian's first cousin, and being Carl's first cousin, and being Dennis's first cousin, Mike Love is a prick.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to use that word, folks, but Brian came out and said it not too long ago. He was asked about him because after they did the 50th anniversary tour, we were there.
Great show.
It was maybe the greatest show I've ever seen. Now they were talking about a 60th.
Yeah.
And Mike Love, of course, was trying to headline it. And Brian said, I love him. He's my cousin, but I don't like him.
Yeah.
He said he's nasty, and I really don't want to go through that again for another tour. I don't care how much money is involved.
Yeah, none of them need money. The
richest one of them is Al Jardine.
Real estate, you said, right?
Oh, yeah. He bought real estate in... He again, from Hawthorne, he moved to Santa Barbara, and then he moved up north to in the Monterey area. He bought a lot of real estate, raised horses in my favorite part of California. I mean, you go up past Monterey, and you have the town where Clint Eastwood was, Carmel by the sea.
Right.
And then you have the greatest place in the world, as far as I'm concerned, Big Sur.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Big Sur? If you've watched the movie, Play Misty for Me with Clint Eastwood, it was shot in Big Sur.
Right.
I mean, it is amazing. Right. Yeah, but the scenery and the beach and the rocks and the sycamore trees and the California redwoods, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
he also he wrote a book, Mike Love, because I remember I heard.
Yeah, he did.
He wrote
Always a Beach Boy, something like that.
Yeah. Like I read a little bit of it, but supposedly he explains how it went down. But what I heard also too is that he's very manipulative,
very jealous.
Yeah. And he claims that Brian wasn't there mentally enough to, whatever. They always use that as a scapegoat.
Right.
He wasn't right. He wasn't right in the head. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for Brian, you wouldn't have any songs.
That's right.
Not to go so forward, I'll give him the fact he was part of who wrote Kokomo in the 80s.
Yeah, well, what did he do? He didn't include Brian in that.
Which, I mean, it's not a bad song. It's it's
all right.
It's a Jimmy Buffett song.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, we're veering away, but
no, I'm just...
I do not understand the legion of fans that go to Jimmy Buffett concerts. The man had one song.
I know.
Yeah, Margaritaville, and we went to that place in Jamaica.
It was terrible.
It was horrible.
It was a hole in the wall. Yeah.
I mean, but they do camping out in Jones Beach till he comes. I mean, what is it?
It's cultish in a way. I'll never get it either.
I'll never get it, but that doesn't make it right or wrong.
Right.
But so again, Brian, started experimenting with drugs, and he got into some bad company, and bang, 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 he took acid, and boom.
Yeah, it fried him.
He ended up being afraid to leave his room.
I think he was going to attempt suicide, but stopped.
Right. So think about it. He stayed in his room for people say for 1 year. I think it was more like 3 years. He
Imagine
didn't leave his
staying in your
room.
room.
Didn't leave his room.
He grew that long beard. He gained a lot of
He was
weight.
320 pounds.
In the book, he said his fingernails grew. And
Yeah, he was He was like Howard
I was
Hughes,
just gonna say that. I was just gonna say
another
that.
brilliant man
Yeah,
who just,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. They
and
say brilliance comes with
yeah,
madness.
yeah, yeah,
Einstein, Tesla.
yeah. So then, unfortunately, his brothers were worried about him, and they hired this guy Eugene Landy, who was a
Yeah,
quack doctor who put him. Who One thing he did do, he got him into physical shape.
yeah,
I mean, if you see Brian after he lost the weight, and he's living in Malibu in his own house and blah blah blah, he looked great.
yeah. There's a funny part in the book where Brian Wilson had actually stopped touring, stopped writing music, and opened a store in California, the Radiant Radish. It was a
Right,
health food store.
right.
I forgot who the gentleman was who came in there one day looking for whatever the hell he was looking for. Because at that time, that's when the madness started with health food. But he saw him, didn't recognize him because of the beard. He was wearing a robe.
Yes.
And he asked him, he said, I need vitamin D, whatever. And when he said, this guy looks familiar. I know this guy. And he saw him looking on the shelf and he turned around. He goes, wait a second. You're Brian Wilson. And he said, shyly, yeah, that's me. And he's like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, Eugene Landy, took over his life,
Yeah.
and I understand how he did it at the beginning because he got him into shape.
Yeah.
But then Eugene Landy had one secret ambition. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be a beach boy.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where the money that cost Brian,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. The guy would he would control his every movement. He had him over medicated. If it wasn't for Brian's second wife, Melinda, who came into his life in a very crazy way, if anybody saw the movie, and it happens to be true.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Good movie. John Cusack.
Yeah, it starts with you see him in a Cadillac agency, and he's and you see a pair of sneakers outside of a Cadillac.
Yeah, yeah.
And the camera pans, and it's him. And she was the salesperson, and she came by and she said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "Are these your shoes?" And he said, "Yeah, I live by the beach, and I didn't want to get sand inside the car.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to." So she said, "That's okay." She said, "No, it's not okay." So one word led to another, and she didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
So in walks Eugene Landy, and he said to Brian, "What are you doing in here?" He said, "I need a car." So he said, "Okay, you want a Cadillac? What do you want, a Maserati? What do you want?" He goes, "No, I like this car." He said, "Okay." So he said to the salesperson, who was Melinda, he said, "We need a deal on it, on a whatever it was. I forget what it was." Uh, he said, "No, you don't understand. I want this car." And she said, "You want the one here in the showroom?" He said, "Yes, this car." So Landy said, "Do you know who this is?" And she said, "I have no idea."
Right.
She said, "This is Brian Wilson." She said, "Brian Wilson." She's thinking of the Beach Boys, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "No, it can't be." He said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And they started, they started seeing one another,
Yeah.
and she just couldn't get over what the control was
Yeah.
by this doctor, to the point where he was, if he took her out on a date, he'd have two people with them.
Yeah, that's crazy. I
You
read
know?
about that. That's in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny in the book, when they, like you said, when they first found him, I think the first wife had found Dr. Landy, finally got Brian, to come out of his room. They introduced him on stuff, but what eventually started happening is that he started billing the Beach Boys for his services, and they were like, what went from a small amount, he would send them a mass amount over, like, because he told them it's going to take 2 to 3 years for my services, blah blah, and they wanted to pay them like $100 and something thousand dollars, and they were like, wait a second, they had to look at, because he's like, I'm going to have to live with him. He used to shower with him, couldn't,
Right. Right.
it was insane.
Right. So anyway, so she starts getting more and more in the picture, and Landy's trying to talk her out of it,
Yeah.
saying, "This is not for you. He's a sick man. He'll never be able to have a relationship. Ask his first wife.
That's harsh, man.
Yeah. So ask his kids.
Yeah,
So he was trying to hold on to the control
sure.
and to the payday, right? So it got to the point where she said, she took a list of the medications he was on, and she talked to a doctor, a friend of hers, and the doctor said, "This is going to kill him."
Yeah, he was on all types of
Yeah.
anti.
So his heart's going to explode.
Yeah. It was
And
also probably adding to his weight too.
yeah, and she called
Excuse me.
Carl Wilson and said, you don't know who I am. Blah, 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 blah. So he agreed to meet her, and he instantly believed her. He said, she said, "Look, I have no interest in money or fame. I just happen to like Brian."
Yeah.
And he thought that was great, and they got rid of him. They
Yeah.
got rid of Landy.
You know what's funny is you mentioned Carl, and at that time when they were meeting, Carl, Dennis, not Mike Love, but they all had except for Al Jardine had drug problems,
Yeah,
big time. So they were all struggling. So I know that he talks about it in the book because it was very hard to like coexist sometimes with them and their addictions. And you said Landy, getting rid of him was a pain in the ass because legally they like went through hell to get rid of him. He also at the end, I think he got discredited and lost his title,
yeah. He
I
was.
believe.
It was. I think it was. He was a psychologist, right? So I don't know if he lost that title because they brought a suit against him that was very damaging.
Yeah.
So anyway, now Brian's on the mend. He's starting to see that life can really be okay, and he finds Melinda, and Melinda, is very, very, very devoted to him, and they get married, and they adopted 5 children. So
They had
they have
five.
5 kids. Yeah, 5 adopted kids.
How many does he have altogether?
7,
Wow.
but 5 were adopted.
I never
Two
knew
two
that.
were his own. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And this woman is like a rock.
Yeah.
And then when Mike Love was using the Beach Boys name, she said to Brian, "That's your name.
Yeah.
You coined that name." He said, "Yeah, but let him use it." And she said, "No,
Yeah.
don't let him use it. Let him pay for it."
Yeah.
So
What is it? What is? Do you know what the like? What is he? He rents it.
he rents the name, and they have to pay him Brian a royalty.
That's disgusting.
Yep. So anyway, like you said, and there was always friction between Dennis and Mike Love.
Right.
Dennis did not like Mike Love.
Right.
Okay, you got to remember, Dennis was was the middle child out of the 3 boys, right? And Dennis loved Brian. He adored Brian.
Protected him.
We mentioned this. He threw his father down a flight of stairs after his father was pounding on Brian.
Yeah.
Couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And he felt the same way about Mike Love. He said he thought Mike Love, was did not treat Brian with any respect.
No. In fact, Mike Love and the father used to side against Brian, which I was going to bring up next. Talk about the Sea of Tunes.
Well, yeah, that's the saddest thing in the world. The music collection. These people are selling them today for hundreds of millions of dollars. Murray Wilson sold Sea of Tunes for $75,000. I know. Brian got it back, but it was like, forget it.
What year was that? Did he sell it?
In the mid-60s.
The whole catalog.
The catalogs.
Jesus.
Yeah. So anyway, at the end of the day, it goes to show you that, um, you know, any way he turned, he had problems.
Yeah.
He had problems with his father. He had problems with his mother, whom he adored, but was an alcoholic because of the father.
Right.
And it was like one thing after the other. But getting back to Dennis not liking Mike Love, they had a real contentious a relationship. Dennis, Dennis was a drunk,
Yeah.
and they had to send him for rehab so many times, and he was using drugs and blah blah blah.
He was married a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, but the biggest thing he did, just to tell, just to show show up Mike Love. Mike Love fathered an illegitimate child. I don't know who the mother was. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, because he's been married like seven,
7
8
times, yeah.
times. Yeah.
but he fathered an illegitimate child named Gage. Okay, and Brian and basically, if you think about it, that girl that Mike Love fathered is indirectly a cousin to
Yeah, yeah.
right. He starts dating her.
What?
Yes, and he ends up marrying her.
I never heard that.
And there was like a
It's
whole
like Woody Allen.
well, that's what happened. And so anyway,
How long ago was that?
oh, this is like this is right before the end of Dennis's life.
Is she his current wife?
He's dead. He drowned.
Oh wait, Dennis? No, Mike Love had an illegitimate kid.
Yeah.
And Dennis started dating the illegitimate. Oh
Right.
my
Yeah.
god!
Yes.
I take it back. That's not like Woody Allen. That's like holy
Yeah.
shit.
It's like you dating Aunt Camille. You know,
Oh,
something like that.
She couldn't do any work. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
No, but anyway, um, so there was always that friction there. So if you look at Brian's life right now, he is probably at we saw him a couple of years ago. He looked terrible.
Yeah, he was in a wheelchair.
Well, his back, he had back surgery twice.
Yeah.
But right now, I think he's in a good spot because he's getting ready to tour again. He seems to be happy.
Yeah.
And
when he wasn't with the band, they were releasing, what was some of the albums they were releasing? Wild Honey, and
right,
there wasn't no Surf Sound anymore.
no,
it was like
they were all over the place.
Yeah, and according to him in the book, it wasn't his. He's like, this isn't, and it didn't sell.
No, that was Carl's idea, going Wild Honey.
Yeah.
That was Carl.
There was some hits.
Yeah, Carl was another guy who was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I've been to his grave in California, and on the gravestone it says Carl Wilson, the heart and voice of an angel.
Yeah.
He was just a very nice guy who was very serious. Carl was the serious guy. In fact, when the band was playing and somebody missed a note or hit a bad note, the first thing Carl would turn around and stare at the guy. What are you doing?
Yeah, you messed up.
He'd pick up on all of that.
Right.
He had a great voice. He sang God Only Knows.
Yeah.
But he died too. He died tragically. He had brain cancer.
Yeah.
And he was just, and Brian talks about it. He said, I lost Carl. I lost Dennis. He said, well, very two important people in the group. And then he said, well, Mike was important too. That's how, he acknowledged them.
Yeah.
But I just, I can't stand looking at Mike Love, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he's just
he's a showman.
Yeah.
He's a showman.
He's a good front man.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a bad voice.
Yeah.
In the early days, he had some nice dancing moves. He was
Right.
with it, but he was no Mick Jagger. You know what I mean?
No. And he embarrassed them too. The time when they got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he said disparaging things about Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. How stupid could you be?
Yeah, you're really picking the wrong fight there, bro.
No, but it's not about that. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is about camaraderie. Look at look at what you've achieved.
Yeah.
Why must you say things about
what does it matter?
What does it matter? You got there.
Yeah.
To me, I'd be beyond my head being in the same breath with these people.
Yeah. And how much money has Mike Love made because of Brian?
Let's not go there. But anyway,
so then in the 80s, Brian comes back and he has a lot more. Is that where he did what's the one we like? Love and Mercy?
Yeah, well, that was later, and he had his own band, which his own band was better than the Beach Boys band. Okay, he had great people in the band. He had
that pretty lady. Who was the one with the really nice voice?
Oh yeah, the blonde girl.
She had a nice voice.
She was beautiful, and she had a great voice. She was with him for years. Jeffrey Foskett, who has a great falsetto voice.
Yeah.
Darian Sahanaja.
That's the guy. Yeah.
Who can play the keyboards like nobody else.
Yeah.
Paul Mertens on the sax and on the woodwinds, and he has a very good. Now his son-in-law, Pete Bonfiglio, is touring with him. He sings a lot of Brian songs on the tour. He's got a great voice and a great guitarist. He's married to Carney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's very fond of Brian. They do a lot of things together. Um, but all these people that he gave a chance to when he formed this band, ran. This is amazing. Of course, I want to play with Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
And the band is really good, and we're going to see them in July.
Yeah.
I have to, and Al Jardine is going to be with them, and Blondie Chapin's going to be with them, and Matt Jardine. He's got a really good band.
Yeah. Tight.
They're very tight. They're very good. They play together very well. So, uh, you know, he went from being a nobody to inadvertently creating a genre, creating a business,
Yeah.
to almost killing himself,
Mm-hmm.
to becoming um, uh, a guy who stayed in his room for 2 years. And when he wrote In My Room, I mean, that was his life story. If you
Mm-hmm.
listen to it. Um,
And in his book too, which is really interesting, he talks about his experience in his room. He said he would wake up, look around, and would not get out of his bed. And he said he would start to hear the voices, start to feel them close again. And what he would do is the way he described it was his eyes would roll back into his head, and he
right,
would wake up and not know what day it was.
right, yeah. So and he became slovenly.
Yeah,
He was really
he reached 300 pounds at one point.
320, and and then of course Landy did one good thing. He put him on a regimen. He put him on an exercise regimen. He had him running.
Yeah,
He had him doing all good things. But then it went to his head. He saw a cash cow.
yeah, yeah.
But anyway, at the end of the day,
Genius,
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 genius.
underrated,
There'll never be another one.
underrated.
No.
And I say this too, like from if we saw him when we saw the 50th anniversary. I mean, first of all, the most when you think about it, when you saw them all up there, they've lasted the test of time. They were blasting hits one after another after another.
I counted that show. There were 46 songs.
46 songs that were on the charts.
Right. And if the thing that blows my mind about that concert, it was in Jones Beach, as you well remember.
Yep.
No one sat down.
Never sat down.
Everybody stood up for the whole show.
Yep.
And the beach balls were being banged all around the place. But I mean,
most memorable part is John Stamos gets up to play the drums. Yeah. I've never seen more hot ladies flood to the stage.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that's Uncle Jesse, man.
Yeah, right.
And he was damn good, man. But the place was shaking. And again, it felt like, I remember we were saying, think about what they're singing. They're singing songs that have been around since the 60s that are timeless.
Timeless. What's your favorite Beach Boy song?
My favorite Beach Boys song has to be Sloop John B.
Okay.
By far.
Yep. Okay.
And yeah, has to be Sloop John B. And I would say because it always held a special place in my heart. It wasn't really a Beach Boys song. Love and Mercy.
Yep.
Love that. And you want to admit, I want to hear what I love was their version of, we heard them do it live. And we heard Fogerty do it live. But their version of When I Was a Little Bitty Baby Mama. I love their version. Yeah. And the Christmas song. I love Little Saint Nick.
Little Saint Nick.
I love
it's the Little Saint
It's my
Nick.
favorite. Always makes me happy.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, my favorite, of course, is God Only Knows. Mm-hmm. To me, that's probably my favorite song ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so, it's timeless, like we say. But I'd be really pressed. I think I'd have a list of 25 songs that I think are just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'd put them right up there in my all-time favorites,
You think God Only Knows could be in the greatest of the top 10 ever?
It should be.
If they had
a
list.
I mean, yeah. And the guy who who was the Beatles manager, not the manager, the guy who did all
Um,
their arrangements, not Brian Epstein.
oh, that's what I was thinking
Yes,
of. Yeah.
Sir George, whatever his
Oh,
name,
okay.
said that this is Brian's masterpiece.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, Paul McCartney, who's a dear friend of Brian, they would be friendly competitors.
Yeah.
When they did Sergeant Pepper and Brian heard Sergeant Pepper and he said, holy smoke, that's fantastic. He
Yeah.
answered it with Pet Sounds.
Yep.
And then Paul McCartney said to the Beatles, he said, the genius on the West Coast just did it again.
Yep.
So, they were friendly rivals.
Yeah. And like you said, there are perfect things that fit. There is masterpieces per every artist. So for God Only Knows and the Beach Boys was very similar to, Light My Fire in the Doors or,
Right.
Hendrix and Purple Haze.
Oh, yeah.
They all fit where
Yeah.
they're supposed to.
Yeah, they do. And then we're going to talk about one hit wonders hopefully in our next cast, but it blows my mind that it's 2022 and some of these guys who made these one songs have been able to live off them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a list of them the list goes on.
I love it because you want to laugh. Even in the 90s, I did a show about one hit wonders on the other Give Me Back My 90s podcast. And we had that then too. And some of them, like now, have guys and bands that are touring with groups and festivals. And maybe they'll get 1 to 2 to 3 hits out of them. But if you look at the bill is full of 8 to 10 bands that can do 1 to 3 songs and times that and think about all the money they made off. That's all you need. So imagine being the Beach Boys with like 50, greatest hits of all times. I mean, it's insane. It's funny. I always thought that, and I think you would agree, maybe it has to do with surf and you don't really hear surf, but I, I don't think they ever got their due to be at the top with all those other bands that you always hear about, like, as great as they were, whether it's the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, which I think is arguable, somewhere in there, because again, to get that number one is a very hard thing to discuss. It's like, who's the greatest basketball player of all time?
It's subjective.
It's subjective.
Yeah.
They have to be in the conversation to be in that top 10 somewhere, top 20.
Agreed.
Have to be.
Agreed. And, living in the 60s like I did, and like we said a couple of podcasts ago, my favorite possession that I ever had was my Sony transistor. When I used to listen to it all night on a Saturday night and on a Friday night, when I should have been sleeping, I mean, I can remember where I was when I heard this song. I remember where I was when. So we're talking about the one hit wonders. The song, excuse me, the song "Stay," just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
How many times was that covered by other people?
My God.
Right. And do you know that song, when it first came out, was the shortest song ever recorded to chart?
Wow.
It was under 2 minutes. It was 1 minute and 46 seconds, something like that. And the guy who wrote it and did it was a guy by the name of Maurice Williams, and he had a group called the Zodiacs.
Ooh.
And they made this song. And that song, this guy lived off that song, but he was very smart. He also wrote "Little Darling" for the Diamonds.
Dun, dun, dun.
Little
Dun,
darling,
dun,
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 right?
dun,
Yeah.
dun.
And he was very very talented. But again, when we do one hit wonders, you're going to really be surprised at hearing songs that you don't even know the name, but you know the tune.
Yeah.
Like "Hey Baby."
Yeah, man. Dirty Dancing. So
Yeah.
it reminds me of right away.
Exactly right. But this guy's been around forever, with that song. Bruce Chanel. Who the hell is Bruce Chanel? I don't know.
Should be a title to who the hell is Bruce Chanel?
Right.
Be $1 million question.
So listen, we're going to have a lot of fun with the one hit wonders because it's amazing. A lot of the guys who did the one hit wonders would tour, and one of them was a butcher in real life. One of them was a cop.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew a couple of them. Actually, they were 2 hit wonders. maybe three. The guys from South Ozone Park.
The
There's a moon.
Chimes.
There's a moon out tonight.
Oh,
Nick Santa Maria. His real name is Nick Santa Maria. He's a cop. Nick Santo. That was the name. But they made like two songs, and and they still tour with the two songs.
hey,
You
getting
know,
paid. It's funny you mentioned songs. I mentioned, what's it called from Dirty Dancing. Think about how many I've seen it recently. How many movies and shows is Beach Boys music in?
oh, forget it.
When you think about it, I've seen
Commercials.
commercials, man. I mean, that used to be the thing you didn't want to do because you were considered selling out.
Right.
But again, today, look, it's flattery.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, because the Beach Boys songs, uh, if you listen to California Girls, really listen to it, okay? If you really just sat and listened to how it starts, how it begins, it to me, it takes you like, it's like a calming song.
Yeah.
And and then the beat starts and it comes on a little bit, and they talk about girls from the East Coast girls, the Southern girls, Midwest farmers' daughters
Yeah.
really make you feel all
It's my
right.
favorite lyric.
And the Southern girls, with the way they kiss, they keep their boyfriends warm at night.
Yeah.
And when I first heard the song, I thought he was saying, I wish they like he was saying they were better than California girls. But what he was saying was, I wish they all could be California
Yeah.
girls, because then the West Coast has the sunshine and the girls all get so tan.
Yep.
I dig a French bikini on a wild island gulf by a palm tree in the sand. I've been all around this great old world and I've seen all kinds of girls, but he's talking about the ones in the States are the best. So it's just and for 30 years that was the opening song in any Beach Boys concert. California Girls was the first song they did.
Wow. You know what's
That'll
funny
get you
too?
in the mood.
Yeah, it was covered so many years later by Katy Perry and Snoop Dogg. Not the original version, but they had a song called California Girls.
Right.
And it was, came from a lot of what Brian Wilson was talking about. Yeah, think about that. The term California Girls came from Brian Wilson, which
Right.
you hear all the time.
Right. California.
Yeah.
He loved California. He was like he woke up one morning and said, "Boy, I live in California.
Yeah.
This is amazing."
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who lived there part-time for a while. I couldn't wait to go back. As much as I didn't want to leave my family, I was in heaven, and I used to love when you guys used to come out and spend a week or 10 days. Or remember the time we stayed out during Christmas and over New Year's?
Great time. Great time.
We had a lot of fun.
Universal Studios.
Yeah, we had a lot of
gained
fun.
about 50 pounds back then.
Yeah, you guys were going into
We were disgusting.
what was that place next to the hotel?
God, we were going to Ralph's Jr.
Ralph's Jr.
We were,
and then we were going into the Ralph's supermarket at night.
Yeah, we never seen a Ralph's Jr., which
Right.
is like pretty similar to what Burger King is here, but it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah.
But you know what also too is that, like you said, created his own genre. There was a music map that I once saw, and basically, there was a pin in the ground, and every band that had come from a place, if you looked at California, it was the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
That's what they're,
Yeah.
right on the map.
Oh yeah. And a lot of good groups came from the beach. The group we're going to see in June, the Turtles, they're all California.
Yeah.
And again, they have withstood the test of time.
Yeah. Put on a good show.
They're great.
Very good show.
I mean,
man.
they're old, but you know what? Howard Kalen could still sing.
Yeah.
And Mark is still nutty, and the show that they do is great, and they had a lot of big songs.
Yeah.
Happy Together was the biggest hit, and if you She Only Wants to Be With Me, and they had about 6 or 7 charters that were really good.
Yeah.
So again, when you go to a concert or to an event, and you see these bands, for example, Tommy James and the Shondells. Tommy James is an amazing talent. We've seen him a lot.
He does put on a good show,
and he's got maybe 1 or 2 originals with him. Okay, another good group who had 4 or 5 charts. that we see all the time.
Oh, Mark Lindsay.
Well, no, he was the original lead singer of Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Yeah,
He's okay, but the group I'm trying to is
Grassroots.
the Grassroots. Thank you. They have no originals,
Yeah,
and
guy
and
who kicks, doing the high kicks with the guitar.
yeah, but they're good.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
very good. They're very talented, and the Buckinghams. Okay, the Buckinghams had 4 or 5 hits. Hey baby, they're playing our song. Susan.
yeah,
Yeah, they had 3 or 4 good hits, and they have 2 originals touring. The guy Nick on the bass, and Carl Giammarese, the lead singer.
yeah.
And there was another lead singer of that group called Dennis Stefano, who was also touring on his own. So there's a lot of there's still, and in 2 or 3 years it'll all be gone,
You think so?
because people like us are not going to be around that remember them.
You never know.
You know, I mean, the oldies phase back in the 80s and 90s was on fire because it was an
Yeah,
amazing time. All these
yeah.
guys, and they all took advantage of it.
I remember that. Yeah, when you guys were, you and mom and all your friends were going, there was like a revival.
Yeah,
What else? Even that's even. I mean, it wasn't really the Beach Boys, because Brian wasn't part of them, but they had their revival, like we said again with Kokomo, 1985, with what's the movie with Tom Cruise, Cocktail.
right.
But he had his own hits back then. That's why I hope now, being a 2022, him still touring is important because listen, that's a big chunk of music history
He's
that you
81
need.
years old.
Is he that
He's
old?
going to be 81.
Well, that young, I should say. Is
Yeah,
81?
yeah,
Wow. Who's
yeah.
the youngest out of the group?
Well, Mike Love is 81. Brian will be 81. I think Jardine is in his late 70s.
Okay. Okay.
They're the originals that are left.
Yeah.
You
Bruce
know,
Johnston goes with Mike Love.
yeah. Well, Bruce Johnston, he's a he's a
Good
he's a
musician.
good musician.
Yeah, he was good when we saw him.
And you know what else? You got to remember when Brian decided he didn't want to. He had the nervous breakdown. He didn't want to tour anymore. Okay, they had to replace him. They replaced Brian with Glenn Campbell,
Yeah.
right? And Glenn Campbell lasted for like 9 months, and he said, "I couldn't take the traveling, and the girls screaming, and it made you crazy."
I'll trip this as well.
Well, anyway, and then he went on to become, a major star.
Yeah.
Uh, but then they brought in Bruce Johnston, and he's been with them ever since.
Yeah. But going back to with the touring, I remember reading in the book the touring schedule they had was like,
Oh, they were in Japan, and then
yeah, that's right,
all
they
over
were in Japan.
Yeah, they were.
So think about it, too. They're one of the acts from here that made it big internationally.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's not.
Sean Lennon, when his father died, they interviewed him, and he was very close to John Lennon because at that time John Lennon had quit doing everything to become a guardian, a house mother, father. He took care of Sean,
Yeah.
and he would take him wherever he went, and when he died, the most horrible thing that ever happened. They were talking to Sean, and he said, "How do you cope?"
Yeah.
He said, "There's only one way I cope." He said, "I listen to a Brian Wilson song
Oh,
because you cannot be sad listening to a Brian Wilson
no,
song."
you can't.
He said, and that's what got me through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Are
know?
they, they're one of few bands that toured internationally, right? I mean, the Beatles never toured. I mean, they came to America, but they never went to Japan or.
To think about it, the king of them all couldn't leave the country because his manager was an illegal alien.
That's right.
Don't you think? Don't you think when you heard Elvis talk, he said, "I've never been there."
He's still big there. He's huge in the East.
I know, but
Statues of him all the countries.
I know, but what I'm saying is, so yeah,
But that's amazing that they're big. They're big all over the world.
Yeah, their demand was amazing.
Yeah,
You know?
I don't think a lot of people understand that because, like, being on the East Coast, I guess there's a lot of people that didn't like whatever the surf thing was, but there's no denying how great of an impact it had.
Yeah, if you really want to hear a great concert, the Beach Boys, when Brian started making a comeback, They were in England, live from the. I'm trying to remember the town they were in.
Not what's that famous?
Nebworth.
Okay,
The
I think
Beach
it's the
Boys
famous
live in
bowl. I thought
Nebworth.
you meant.
Okay, and they had a show on a. It was like in a field. It
Right.
wasn't a. It wasn't a.
Not
Uh,
Wembley.
no, it wasn't any of those things. It was like a sheep pen. It would be like having a show in Central Park.
Okay.
So they had this concert there, and I don't know how many thousands of people. And in the beginning of the show, it started to rain,
Wow.
and the people, nobody was covered, and they wouldn't leave. And then it stopped, and it was one of the greatest shows I've ever heard or seen. The songs that they did where they that you wouldn't kind of when I was a that you don't uh, recognize that much. When I was a little bitty baby, they sang that,
Such a good song.
the great song. And then they sang Lady Linda.
Right.
Lady Linda, love you, and it was just amazing. And then they brought Dennis Wilson down, who looked like he was like really out of it,
Yeah.
and he sang "You Are So Beautiful to Me," and you bring tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
The way he sang it,
He had a solo career too, right?
he was very talented.
Made a solo album.
Yeah,
Wrote
he
a
did.
book. I have his book.
About the Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was very talented, and he could sing.
What is the catalog you think of Beach Boys songs total?
Oh my God, I don't know. Brian talked about he found an old briefcase that he had, like not a footlocker, but like a piece of luggage,
Right.
and he opened it up, and he said there were 1,000 songs in there that he never recorded, that he wrote, but he never recorded.
What
1,000
in a vault.
in a vault. Yeah.
Yeah. And the greats have that. Prince has that. He has that. So
Right.
many bands have the so many in the vault, man. It's amazing.
So to close, we were blessed. I was especially blessed to have lived during the time of Brian Wilson. And you know what? He'll go down as probably my favorite artist ever. I have like 5 of them that I really love. And you know who they are. Brian is probably number 1. Frankie Valli, who I love.
Still going.
Still going. Chasing the music, as he says. Smokey Robinson is
Saw him.
he's
still
just
going.
amazing.
Yeah.
I could when I was sick. Unfortunately, I had a bout with prostate cancer, and I'll never forget the day before my 2 days before my surgery. I had to go for this intense. Um, uh, when you not a when you go into the tube
Scan.
yeah. That I had to stay in there for an hour and 20 minutes because they were trying to narrow the area where the cancer was, so the surgeon knew where he had to go. And what got me through it, I had my earphones and I listened to Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
And the nurse said to me, "You've been in here for an hour and a half. We asked you not to move anything. You had to stay still as you could be." An MRI machine,
yeah,
right?
Pain in the neck.
And you're in that tube and your nose is touching the top of the tube. If you're claustrophobic, forget about it. She said, "I noticed one thing." I said, "What?" She said, "Your pinky was moving." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." "Who were you listening to?" I said, "Smokey Robinson." She said, "Oh, okay, I understand."
Yeah.
And he got me through that.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Music is my life.
Yeah.
That's of course my family's my life, but as far as anybody said to me, "What's your passion besides your family?" Music.
Yeah. Well, you sure know a shit a lot about it.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
So, all you people out there, and I hope you're out there, I'm hoping that
it's either them or crickets or aliens.
I have people that I work with who have been asking, "I want to listen to it. How do I do it?"
Yeah.
So how do they do it?
The way they do it is they basically can go to the YouTube page and subscribe to my page. It's under my name, and then you can scroll down and just find the Old Timer and the Punk. This will be episode number 4. You can also find us on Instagram, and you can find us on Facebook. And we should be jumping to other things like there's so many damn social media things, TikTok and I don't know, Peacock, and you know.
I'm not going to say another word because then you'll say you know that's not nice to talk about.
What are you gonna say?
Peacock, this cock, Bangkok.
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 You're talking about that?
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about Bangkok out in in the Orient.
Yeah. A lot of Hancock.
Yeah. If you want insurance, call John Hancock.
Call John Hancock.
Right.
Man. Yeah. So you can find us on there, and just give us subscribe to the page, give us a like. You could always shoot out to us on any of those platforms. We'd like to hear from everybody, man.
Yeah, I would. The dream that I have is that people ask questions. I mean, I'm a teacher at heart, and I think that I would love that opportunity to answer people's questions. I mean, if I could,
Yeah, I think you definitely could for sure.
Yep.
But we'll be coming at you hopefully soon with episode 5, which should be the One Hit Wonders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about just a little preview of the One Hit Wonders. You guys will remember these songs, I think. I hope.
Well, you said Stay.
Stay is the big one.
Hey,
Bruce Chanel.
baby.
Okay.
Yeah. That name's going to be stuck in my head.
Right,
now.
of course. Okay, I'm going to shoot another one at you. Do you love me like I really do?
That's a
Do
One Hit
you
Wonder?
love me? Well, they were a group that were around during the Motown sound.
Okay.
They were the Contours.
Is that a car?
Contour. I think it was
I thought it was.
It could have been.
Yeah.
But they had one hit.
Yeah.
A
lot of movies.
Yeah.
Teen Wolf 2 was in a lot of movies.
And the groups, and the other thing we're going to hit upon is the Philly sound, because a lot of great artists come from the Philly area.
Yeah.
And I mean, the number one guy I think that came out of Philadelphia was Chubby Checker. He had the most hits.
Yeah.
He did every dance known to man. Do the fly, do the twist, let's twist again. The Hucklebuck.
Hucklebuck.
The Popeye, the Hitcher.
Try to give me the Hucklebuck.
Yeah, I'll give you the Hucklebuck.
Yeah.
Popeye the Hitcher. I mean, he just went on and on and on, and he was and he's still a great talent. I've seen him a couple of times, and he's still touring today. In fact, I saw his tour bus one day on the Garden State Parkway. He was going to a tour somewhere, and it said Chubby Checker.
Wow.
Yeah. The Philadelphia sound, Frankie Avalon.
He had a lot of hits.
He had a lot of hits, and he's still active today.
Venus, was that him?
Venus was his song, and he made it in 2 genres. He did a disco version of it, and
I never heard the disco.
it was a mover.
And what was his other hit?
Oh, he had a lot of hits. He had Bobby Socks to
That's
Stockings.
the one I couldn't think of. I remember listening to that.
And he was in the original Grease. He was Teen Angel.
He was in that?
Yeah.
Really?
Teen Angel.
He was also in those beach movies, right?
Yeah, Beach Blanket Bingo.
Yeah. Did a lot of them.
Back to the Beach.
Who was the lady?
Annette,
yeah.
Annette passed away.
Funicello. I messed that up. What other one-hit wonders do we have there?
Okay, I'll tell you. The Rhythm of the Rain, the Cascades. Listen to the rhythm of the right.
Great song.
Again, Teen Angel. Remember Teen Angel? Mark Dinning. He was a one-hit wonder.
That's a depressing song.
Yeah.
Man.
Back in the late 50s, Mother-in-Law.
Oh,
Mother-in-law.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Yeah.
The guy's name was Ernie Cado.
Do you like his mother-in-law?
I don't know. No, he hated her. He didn't want to talk to her.
Obviously.
They even had like the nun singing, the singing nun. Dominique.
Yeah.
Remember her?
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was, they're just so. I mean, we could do 5 shows on One Hit Wonders. There's so just funny. So many of them. I mean, really.
Who's the other guy? The guy we saw who has a great voice. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, Philadelphia. Talking about Philadelphia. Len Barry.
Yeah.
The name of the group was. Tell me the name of the group.
Wait a second.
I'll tell you their song.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that.
The Bristol Stomp.
Dun, 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 dun. 1 and 2.
The Bristol was a suburb of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So it was the Bristol.
I thought it was a dance.
No.
I didn't know.
So no, the Bristol Stomp.
He was the lead singer of that group.
Yes, he was. And they did another song, which was their best song, called Hully Gully. Hey girl, I love you. Tell me what you wanna do.
What was the
Hully
band name?
Gully now.
The band was.
Come on.
I'm trying to think. I used to mention this all the time. Bristol Stomp. I'm blanking. Who is it?
Well, Len Barry was the lead singer, right?
Yeah. We didn't see him.
We saw him on television. He gained like 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? But he had a
He's
good
had
voice.
Great voice.
Yeah. Okay,
So 1, 2, 3 was like the hit he made. I guess when he was traveling by himself.
But the name of the group was the Dovells.
The Dovells. What the hell's a Dovell?
I don't know.
Okay.
What's a Shondell? I don't know.
I don't know what a Shondell is either, man.
Right. So, they had like 3 or 4 hits. But the Philadelphia, D.D. Sharp came out of Philadelphia. Bobby Rydell, Frankie Avalon, Chubby Checker, and the list goes on. The great, the Exciters, one hit wonder. Tell him that you're always gonna want him. Tell him that.
Big song.
The Orlons, Watusi.
Why does that ring a bell?
Hit Watusi.
Dun, 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 dun.
South Street. Where do all the hippies meet?
I don't know that
South
one.
Street.
Yeah.
Well, so they had a lot of great talent in the Philadelphia area. So a lot of good songs, a lot of good people came out of there.
One hit wonders will be interesting.
Now the one hit wonders are going to be fun because we're going to
bring back.
We're going to talk about songs that you know, but then I didn't know that was that he sang that.
Or you thought someone else sang them, which I always thought, man, because they sounded so familiar to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, the one hit wonders. I mean, you can go over this all day. Alley Oop, the Hollywood Argyles. Do you remember that song?
No.
Alley Oop, boop, boop. There's a guy in the funny papers we all know. Alley Oop, boop. It was.
I've heard.
When I was in grammar school during the late 50s. That was the rage. Alley Oop.
Oh Jesus. That guy cleaned up from that one. Huh?
Yeah, but he made one song.
Yeah.
And then you had, a lot of guys that.
Oh, who's the dude we saw who was in Goodfellas? Vito Picone?
Vito Picone, yeah, the Elegance.
Where
song. Are you, little star?
Good song.
One hit.
Yeah. But he admitted to that.
He's still doing it today.
Yeah. What'd he say? Hey, man, I made one hit, but I've done pretty good with it.
Yeah.
That's right.
What about our friend John Cuse?
The Coney Island
Baby.
Yeah.
He sang one song and he did very well with it.
Yeah.
It just, again, it's just hitting the right, because when you hear about these one hit wonders, and that's nice, they're living off a song, and you think about the Beach Boys, the Beatles, the Stones, the Four Seasons, all these guys that had mega hits. It just goes to show you
over and
over again,
and it's still going.
Right.
I think in another 50 years, the Rolling Stones are still going to be here. They can't die.
Oh, absolutely.
They're just timeless, lifeless. They don't die.
Absolutely. Remember, I don't know if you ever heard this song, The Israelites.
No.
Okay, one hit wonder, Desmond Decker. The song
Israelites.
It had a crazy jargon to it, but it was a hit.
Yeah, we saw. There was another guy we saw. Who was the dude who did Sugar Sugar? What was his first?
The
hit?
Archies.
But what was his first hit?
You're talking about Ron
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
like that song.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
Wendy, when I'm with you, the thing that you do, I build my world.
He was like a popcorn singer, a bubblegum singer.
Yeah, you used to call it bubblegum bullshit.
Bubblegum bullshit. Right.
I love that, Darren. You got
the Young Bloods Get Together.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's
Take a letter, Maria. Da, 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 da.
Who sang that?
Send it to my R.B. Greaves. One hit wonder.
Wow. Good song, man.
Yeah.
Good song.
There's just so many of them.
Who's the guys who I said?
Smile a little, smile for me.
Good song.
Rosemary. What's the name of the group?
I have no idea.
The Flying Machine.
The Flying Machine.
Right.
Jesus. Who's the guys we saw?
And maybe one of the biggest one-hit wonders ever by Jackie DeShannon. Put a little love in your heart. That song just keeps going.
Yeah. Who was the group you and I always say kind of tried their best to sound like Elvis. Three of them. Dun 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 don't let it down, dun, 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 baby. If you do, it'll make me crazy.
Oh yeah,
Ah,
Emerson
don't look.
Hart and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Another good one-hit wonder. I always thought, guys, again, I always thought some of these were sung by major acts, but it wasn't.
No, Angel of the Morning, Merrily Rush. You're calling
That was it.
Angel of the One Hit Wonder.
Wow.
Yeah.
And sometimes what they used to do is travel with big acts. They would be the opening.
Yeah,
Three of
sure.
them would open. They'd do
100%.
great, man. Listen.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, look at Jose Feliciano, right? He had the song Feliz Navidad, okay,
Right.
but his other song was Light My Fire.
Yeah, I didn't know how I felt about that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I felt about that. I was like, I don't know, man. I mean, it's nice that you broke it down into like a mandolin type thing going on there, a mariachi. It kind of sounded good, but I don't know, man. You kind of did it. You did it a little too early. Who's the other guy that used to do everybody else's songs? Elvis didn't let him do his song. Guy, he's still at Westbury.
Johnny Rivers.
Johnny Rivers.
Johnny Rivestella from Louisiana.
He used to kind of cover everybody's song and do his own version of it and everything. Did he ever write anything original or no?
Well, he did.
He wasn't Secret Agent Man, was he?
He was.
That was him.
That was
that
him.
his?
That was his
song. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wondered. Yeah. But yeah, I got that. That'll be fun to do that.
If you're going to San Francisco,
man, Scott
McKenzie
never did anything else.
No, his claim to fame is he was John Phillips' best friend.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy? Oh, I know. I fought the law and the law won.
Bobby Fuller 4.
One hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good song.
Yep.
Good song, man.
Expressway to Your Heart. The Soul Survivors.
Oh wow!
Expressway.
Dun, dun.
So I don't want to give away too much, but we have a lot. We have a lot to talk about. Just a lot. I mean, some of the names that these people went under. Just.
Who was the group who sang "They're Going to Take Me Away"? Haha, they're going to take me away.
He wasn't a group. That song was banned.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, because it was talking about people who were mentally ill.
Yeah, paper baskets and something and something.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Tiny Tim too.
Well, Tiny Tim had Tiptoe Through the
Tulips.
Tulips.
That was it.
But Tiny Tim had a great voice.
Yeah,
he had a great range in his voice.
Yeah,
I saw him live. He was funny too.
Yeah.
And he was in the movie with Howard Stern. Remember?
He looks at him strange.
Yeah.
His song was also huge. "Tiptoe Through the Tulips" was
Yeah.
made huge by the movie Insidious.
Oh,
made
right.
Like a research because it's in it for a big chunk of the movie.
What about remember the psychedelic song "Incense and Peppermints"?
Great song.
Yeah, one hit wonders.
Who was the other one?
Strawberry Alarm Clock.
Just gonna say that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Incense, peppermints. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, one hit wonders are huge, man.
Yeah.
And if you go through music history, you'll see that at one time a lot of these bands played on Canned Heat too, right?
Sure.
They were Woodstock.
Yeah. Going to the what was the name of the song?
I'm going to the country.
Going to the country.
That was any of the hits. Oh, I'm on the road again. Was that them?
But that wasn't a big hit.
Yeah, and there was another person at Woodstock who was a one hit wonder. Remember, I forgot the other. John something was another opening act. Had one hit. Not Country Joe.
No, Country Joe and the Fish
had a couple of hits.
Well, yeah, they're a big band that still plays today up in Big Sur.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. What was that thing? The anti-Vietnam song, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But there was another group, John something at Woodstock. I forgot who had a one hit wonder. But...
Winchester Cathedral, da 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 da.
Oh my God!
You're bringing me down. The new vaudeville band, one hit wonder.
Yeah. And this all happened in a very short amount of time, like during the 60s, right? Like they were
and then the one song that got banned, and because it was dirty, "Double Shot of My Baby's Love."
Who's that?
The Swinging Medallions. Get a double shot of my baby's love.
Why was that banned?
Because he was talking about that his girlfriend was making love to him like 3 or 4 times a day.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Lou Christie's song got banned.
Yeah,
Rhapsody in the Rain.
Rhapsody in the Rain, great song.
Because he was sitting in the car and the windshield wipers were telling him to make love to his girlfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Give me a break.
I'm the Pied Piper. Follow me. No, you don't remember that one? Crispy and St. Peter's. One hit wonder.
Was that a band?
No, it was a single guy.
Crispy and was he nuts or something?
well, we're giving away too much.
Yeah,
So we're gonna really hit upon the one hit wonders. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and we're gonna bring back some names that you never heard, but you'll know the song.
Yeah, and if you want, just to preview that,
Cool Jerk. Da, 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 da.
great song,
Yeah,
man. Home Alone 2.
right?
Get out of here, you little jerk. I'm gonna remember the stuffed animal.
What's the name of the group?
Oh my God.
The Capitals.
Yeah. How about Hang On Sloopy?
That's the McCoys. They had more than one.
More
hit.
than one hit?
Yeah.
Yeah. What you can do is too, if you want, you can inbox, or I'm gonna put up a post later on about the One Hit Wonder show coming. If you put it in the comments, or you put it post it on the Facebook comments, we'll definitely give you a shout out and talk about that song and mention it on our next podcast. So yeah, definitely do that. Throw out one of the many one hit wonders that you know from the '60s that we haven't mentioned so far, and we'll give you a shout out and we'll talk about it. So
Guantanamera.
he can keep going, man. It's
I
scary.
live
You
for
have no idea.
Guantanamera. Guantanamera.
Yeah.
The Sandpipers.
Yeah. You could just keep going. It's scary. Like the human jukebox.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed being
Close it.
I enjoyed being with this young punk again.
I enjoyed being with this young timer.
Yeah, right. And we love doing this, and I hope that we've brought you some nostalgia and some good thoughts. So just everybody stay safe until we meet again.
We're out.